Anakin Skywalker died on Mustafar without a grave. The brother he loved, the life he was promised, all burned away while Palpatine turned what was left into a weapon, Darth Vader, the Emperor's fist. But what if that wasn't the end of Anakin's story? What if, after Luke rejected the dark side, Vader was given one impossible chance to go back and stop his own fall? In this timeline, that's exactly what happens, and nothing turns out the same. Let's begin. Far from Coruscant, on a world made of fire, Vader sat alone in his fortress above the lava. The castle on Mustafar was quiet, the usual hum of stormtroopers and droids replaced by a heavy, uncomfortable silence. His duel with Luke Skywalker on Cloud City replayed in his mind over and over. The shock on Luke's face when he said, "I am your father." The wind, the scream, the boy chose to fall into the abyss rather than take his hand. Vader had crushed Jedi, rebels, and warlords. He had broken worlds, but that moment cut through him in a way nothing else had. His own son, choosing possible death rather than join him. For the first time in a very long time, Darth Vader wondered if the Emperor had been wrong about one thing, that Anakin Skywalker was truly dead. He lowered himself into his meditation chamber, letting the shell close around him. The darkness swallowed the harsh lights of the room. Inside, with the armor sealed and the respirator quieted, the mechanical hiss faded until there was only a faint whisper of the Force. He reached for the cold rage that had carried him for years, and instead brushed against something softer. At first, it was just a single spark, then a flood. He heard his mother calling his name on Tatooine. He heard Qui-Gon Jinn's calm voice, promising he would be a great Jedi. He heard Obi-Wan's quiet pride, Ahsoka's laughter, Yoda's warnings. He heard Padme on Mustafar, begging him to come back, insisting there was still good in him. The memories slammed into him so hard he jerked out of the trance. It would have been easier to shut them down, to bury them under anger like he always had. This time, he didn't. He stood. Something was calling to him from beneath the castle. Vader left the chamber and walked through the fortress, past the obsidian halls and viewports glowing with the light of molten rivers. There were no officers to question him, no inquisitors at his heels. This was not imperial business, this was something older. He descended into the lower levels, where the polished stone gave way to raw, jagged walls. The air grew hotter, not from the lava outside, but from something pulsing below. The force here felt dense, heavy, like a storm pressing on his chest plate. At the end of a narrow tunnel, he stopped. The corridor opened into a natural chamber carved by time and heat. Strange markings glowed faintly on the far wall, circles, lines, symbols etched into the rock. Some were Sith runes he recognized. Others were in a script even he didn't know. In the center, an uneven slab of black stone floated just above the ground, wrapped in a thin veil of smoke. Vader stepped closer. The pressure of the Force in the room increased, wrapping around his armor, testing it, testing him. This place had been here long before his castle, long before his master. Whatever it was had nothing to do with the Empire. He extinguished his saber and sank to one knee. He closed his eyes and, for the first time since Mustafar, reached not only into the dark, but into the whole of the Force. Light and shadow, pain and hope. He didn't try to twist it, he let it move. The stone tablet pulsed. The symbols on the walls lit up, one after another, like stars turning on in a night sky. The rock in front of him shimmered, its edges bending until the slab was no longer a simple block, but a frame. Inside that frame, space rippled and opened into something else. A doorway. "Anakin!" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't the Emperor's growl or Obi-Wan's rough edge. It was calm, steady, Qui-Gon Jinn. Vader's fists tightened unconsciously. "You were meant to bring balance, not fall into darkness," Qui-Gon said. "The Force does not move in straight lines. When it is twisted in one place, it corrects in another. Sidious has bent it for too long. This is the answer." The doorway stabilized. Beyond it was not another room, not a simple tunnel, but a black void threaded with pale, glowing paths stretching in every direction. Vader understood at once. This was not hyperspace. It was not a holocron or a vision or a dream. It was a place where time itself had been thinned. "Step through," Qui-Gon said. "You will not go to a different galaxy. You will go to a different moment." One point in your own life where everything changes. Vader's first instinct was suspicion. Time travel was the kind of lie desperate Sith told each other when they wished they could undo their own mistakes. But the power pressing in from the doorway felt nothing like one of Sidious's tricks. It was vast and indifferent, and it didn't care whether he believed in it or not. "What will it cost?" Vader asked. "Everything you are," Qui-Gon answered, "and everything you might still become. If you step through for selfish reasons, the future you build will be worse than the one you leave behind. If you step through for someone else, for the boy you used to be, the galaxy has a chance." Vader thought of Luke turning away from him. He thought of Padme on the balcony on Coruscant, eyes full of worry as war consumed the Republic. He thought of the boy on Tatooine staring at the stars and dreaming of freedom. He had not done anything for that boy in a very long time. Without another word, he walked into the light. Gravity disappeared. There was no up, no down, only motion without moving. The sensation of falling and standing still at the same time. When it finally settled, he was standing on a narrow pathway of luminous stone suspended in an endless dark. Around him, other paths crisscrossed in every direction, curving into the distance. Off to the sides, arches hung in the air like doorways carved out of starlight. Each doorway contained a scene. He saw himself as a child, grinning in a pod racer cockpit. He saw the Jedi Temple, shining and busy. He saw Geonosis. The arena. The first time he ignited a blue saber beside Obi-Wan as a knight. He kept walking. The visions shifted. Mustafar's banks appeared in one portal, only this time Obi-Wan never gained the high ground. Anakin himself leapt, landed, and drove his blade through his former master's guard. The battle ended with Obi-Wan falling, not him. He turned away. Another portal opened on Coruscant, where two armored figures stood in the Senate Rotunda. One was Anakin without burns, eyes golden and cold. The other was Darth Vader as he knew himself, the black armor gleaming. Together they sat on a throne while the Senate cowered. He turned away again. A doorway showed Naboo's green fields. Padme lay in the grass, eyes open but empty. A different Vader knelt beside her, screaming, while a young man with a familiar face and yellow eyes looked on without emotion. Vader's hand tightened around the rail of the path. "Is this what happens if I go back and try to win him?" he asked aloud. The Force didn't answer, but he understood. If he stepped through to secure power, to save Padme only to own the galaxy with his younger self, he would trade one nightmare for something even worse. 2 Sith instead of 1. 2 Emperors instead of Sidious. And Padme dying anyway, caught between them. He walked on until he found the moment that still cut more sharply than all the others. A small office, dimly lit, rain on the window, a disfigured chancellor on the floor. Mace Windu standing over him, blade at his throat. Anakin Skywalker at the door, torn between duty and fear. Vader stopped. This was the hinge, the choice that turned a flawed Jedi into a Sith Lord. "Here," Qui-Gon's voice said. "Last chance." Vader didn't hesitate. He stepped through. The smell of ozone hit him first. Lightning had burned the air, the walls, the ceiling. Mace Windu was struggling to hold his blade steady as a stream of purple light met a crackling wave of blue. Sidious lay on his back, blasting everything he had at the Jedi Master, shrieking about treason and power. Anakin stood near the entrance, eyes wild, chest heaving. Vader materialized between Mace and Sidious just as the lightning reached a breaking point. His red saber sprang to life, intercepting the attack and forcing it aside. Sparks exploded against his armor, but the brunt of the energy went into the floor and walls, blackening them. Everything stopped. The Chancellor's office went silent except for 3 sets of breathing. One mechanical, one exhausted, one panicked. Mace stared at the armored figure who had just saved his life. The Force screamed "Dark Side" around this stranger, yet here he was, blocking a Sith. Sidious's yellow eyes went from Mace's purple blade to Vader's black mask and widened. "No," he whispered. "You can't be here." Anakin's hand shook on his lightsaber. "Who are you?" he demanded. Vader didn't look at Sidious. He didn't look at Mace, not yet. He turned his ruined mask toward the young man at the door, the man he had once been. "I'm what you become," he said, "if you choose him." Anakin swallowed hard. He had seen visions in the Force before, strange dreams. But this was no dream. The presence standing in front of him was real, solid, crushingly heavy in the Force. It felt like looking into a warped mirror. Sidious recovered faster than either Jedi. "Lies!" he hissed. "Jedi trickery. Anakin, this thing is their creation, a monster they built to frighten you. You know me. I have always told you the truth, only I can help you save Padme." Anakin flinched. He had never spoken Padme's name here. Not like that. Not in this room. Vader stepped forward, keeping his blade between Mace and Sidious. "She's your wife," he said quietly. "She's pregnant. Twins. You've seen her die in childbirth in your dreams, and you think the Force is warning you of something you can't change." Anakin's heart stopped. "How do you know that?" he whispered. "Because I watched it happen," Vader said. "I believed him when he said only the dark side could save her. I knelt. I became his apprentice. I marched on the temple. I choked her on Mustafar and thought I killed her myself. When I came back to consciousness, everything you care about was gone." Mace's grip on his lightsaber tightened. Sidious saw the balance tipping and threw himself back into the fight. He unleashed another burst of lightning, this time splitting it, half at Mace, half at Vader. The office exploded into purple and blue. Mace gritted his teeth and held the attack, his muscles shaking. Vader absorbed the rest on his blade, but the energy crawled up through the hilt and into his armor, rattling his systems. He could smell scorched circuits. His chest panel flickered. Anakin did not stand still this time. He ignited his own lightsaber and leapt between Sidious and the two figures taking the brunt of the storm. His blue blade cut through the arc of lightning, forcing it to ground out against the ruined floor. "That's enough!" he shouted. Sidious rolled away, scrambling to his feet. "Anakin," he said, switching back to his most vulnerable tone. "I am weak. The Jedi are traitors. You can still fix this. Kill them, and—" "No," Anakin said. He wasn't calm. He wasn't at peace. But there was a new clarity in his eyes, one that hadn't been there in the original timeline. "I trusted you," he said. "But you've been playing both sides. The clones, the war, everything. And you never meant to save her, did you?" Sidious's expression curdled. "So be it," he spat. He drew his own saber and lunged. The office erupted into chaos. Red met blue and red again as Anakin and Vader moved in sync almost without meaning to. Anakin's form was fast, aggressive, crackling with raw power. Vader's was heavier, more refined, his experience making up for what his damaged body couldn't do. Mace tried to join, but his injuries from the lightning were too severe. He collapsed back against the wall, barely conscious, watching the battle play out in front of him. Sidious was lethal, even wounded. He twisted and spun, using the cramped space to his advantage, forcing Anakin and Vader to cross blades with each other as often as they struck at him. He used the Force to rip furniture free, hurled it like shrapnel, and tried every trick he had ever learned. But this time he was fighting two Skywalkers. At a critical moment, Sidious saw an opening. He feinted toward Vader, then turned and drove a bolt of lightning straight into the chest panel of the black suit. The armor, already strained, overloaded. Vader convulsed and dropped to one knee, systems screaming in his ears. "You see?" Sidious snarled to Anakin. "This is all the dark side has for you. Chains, pain, servitude. Join me now, and you will never be like him." Anakin looked at the man in the suit, struggling to breathe, and saw his own fear made flesh. Not a threat, a warning. "You already made me like him," he said. He struck. Blue met red in a flurry of blows that drove Sidious step by step toward the large window overlooking Coruscant. Every move Anakin made now was fueled not by desperation, but by the simple understanding that he had been used. Sidious tried to leap away, tried to find space to summon more lightning, more tricks. Anakin didn't let him. He pressed the advantage, and with a final pivot sent the Sith Lord's saber spinning across the floor. For a heartbeat, they froze. Sidious on his knees. Anakin standing over him, blade raised. "Do it," Sidious hissed. "Strike me down. Take my place. Fulfill your destiny." Anakin's hands trembled. Footsteps scraped behind him. Vader rose, limping, armor scorched. "You don't have to become me to end him," Vader said. You can make a different choice. You don't kill him for power. You kill him to stop him." Anakin looked down at the man who had promised to save his wife, at the man who had lied to him so completely, at the man who had bent the galaxy until it almost broke. Then he moved, but he didn't swing for the neck. With a sharp thrust, he drove the blue blade straight into Sidious' chest, through his heart. No flourish, no anger, just a clean, deliberate strike. Sidious' eyes went wide. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. The lightning that had danced at his fingertips sputtered and died. Anakin stepped back and shut off his saber. The Sith Lord collapsed to the floor, cloak pooling around him. This time there were no screams, no thrown senators, no explosions in a reactor shaft. The greatest manipulator in the galaxy died on the office carpet, in the same room where he had once convinced a boy he could cheat death. The Force shifted. Vader felt it at once. The tension he had lived under for 20 years relaxed like a held breath finally released. The dark tide that had flooded the galaxy drained away, leaving something raw but clean in its place. It was working. He also felt something else. His hand was transparent. He turned it over. The glove, the armor, the burned skin beneath, all of it was starting to blur at the edges like mist blowing away. Anakin saw it too. "Wait," he said, panic rising again. "What's happening to you?" "The future I came from depended on me choosing him," Vader said, nodding at Sidious's body. "That future is gone. There's no Darth Vader after this night, not like this. The Force is taking back what doesn't belong here." Anakin stepped closer. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. "How do I stop the clones from turning? How do I protect Padme, the Council, the Republic? I don't even know where to start." Vader's voice softened. "Camino," he said. "The inhibitor chips in the clones' brains. Hidden orders waiting to be triggered. There are files in Palpatine's private archives that prove everything. Take them, show the Council, show the Senate. Don't fight this alone. You don't have to." Anakin swallowed. "And Padme?" he asked. "Tell her the truth sooner," Vader said. "About your fears, about the dreams. Don't let Sidious or anyone use them against you. You can't control death. You can only cherish the time you have." His arm was nearly gone now. The edges of his helmet were fading. "I'm sorry," Anakin blurted, "for whatever you had to live through." Vader looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time there was no hate behind the mask, just tired, painful pride. "Live a life where you never become me," he said. "That's enough." With that, the last of him dissolved, pulled back out of this moment and into the place between. The office was quiet again. Mace Windu groaned and pushed himself up, one hand pressed to the wound in his side. He saw Sidious on the floor, saw Anakin standing there with his saber off, breathing hard, eyes clear. "Skywalker," he rasped, "what have you done?" "Ended the war," Anakin said. His voice was hoarse but steady. "But we're going to have a lot to explain." He wasn't wrong. What followed took years. Anakin delivered Palpatine's secret records to the Jedi Council. They uncovered the truth about the clones' programming and moved fast to have the chips removed before any hidden command could be activated. Kaminoans who had thought they were simply following orders were forced to face what those orders really were. The Senate was shown untouched segments of security footage, Palpatine's lightning, his confession, the moment he called himself a Sith Lord. There were debates, outrage, attempts by his allies to cover for him, but the evidence was too strong. The mask of the good Chancellor was stripped away in public. There was no declaration of empire, no emergency powers renewed, no thunderous applause. The Republic was still flawed, but the slide into dictatorship was stopped. For Anakin, the hardest part wasn't the councils or the hearings. It was walking into a small apartment overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape and telling Padme everything. About the dreams, about the choice he almost made, about the man in the black suit who had claimed to be his future. She listened with tears in her eyes, not because she feared him, but because she understood how close she had come to losing him to something neither of them could completely see. When the twins were born, she did not die. There were complications, there always are, but there was no invisible hand around her throat, no Sith Lord whispering in the next room. There was just a new father holding two tiny lives and realizing that no amount of power in the galaxy could ever be worth risking them. The Jedi Council wrestled with what to do about Anakin's marriage. He had broken their code. He had hidden it for years. He had walked closer to the dark than any of them were comfortable admitting. He had also helped save them all. In the end, they did something the old council might not have done. They changed. Exceptions had been made before, in times of crisis. They decided this was one of those times. Anakin would remain a Jedi, but he would be honest about who he was. He would not be the perfect detached guardian their old rules described. He would be something messier, something more human. In the years that followed, the Order slowly stepped back from being generals and returned to being what they were supposed to be: guides, mediators, defenders. And through it all, somewhere beyond their sight, a presence watched. In the realm between times, where the luminous paths still wound through the dark, a figure stood beside Qui-Gon Jinn. The armor was gone. The breathing was easy. Whatever had been Darth Vader was no longer trapped in metal and anger. He was just Anakin, not the one walking the halls of the temple laughing with his children. A different Echo, the man who had lived through the worst timeline and then chosen to erase it for someone else. He looked out through a distant doorway at Naboo's lakes years later. There, in the real galaxy, the living Anakin stood on a balcony as twilight settled over the water. Luke and Leia, older now, leaned on the railing beside him. Padme sat in a chair behind them, reading something on a datapad and pretending not to listen. "You were different once," Leia said, studying her father's face. "Before Sidious, before all of this. Do you ever feel like there's a version of you still out there that didn't make it back?" Anakin smiled faintly. "Every time I look in the mirror," he said. "But I also know I'm not alone in here anymore. Not the way I almost was. I had help, even if I don't understand it." Luke glanced at the stars. "From who?" he asked. Anakin looked up at the same sky. "From myself," he said, "and from the Force." In the space between worlds, the other Anakin, once called Vader, closed his eyes and let that answer be enough. He had not defeated Sidious for his own sake. He had not taken a throne. He had not carved his name into the galaxy. He had simply given his younger self room to make the choice he never did. What if Darth Vader traveled back in time to save himself from turning to the dark side? Maybe the only way that story ends well is if he doesn't actually try to save Darth Vader at all. He saves Anakin Skywalker, then lets Darth Vader disappear. If you enjoyed this alternate timeline and want to explore more what-if stories in a galaxy far, far away, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next Star Wars story. May the Force be with you.